I'm 93. I lost my husband 30 years ago, but I just found the letters he never mailed. 93. I say that number and it still doesn't feel real.
93 years. That's how long I've been breathing. And most of that time, since 1961 anyway, I've been right here in this kitchen. Same stove, same crooked cabinet door. And now I'm sitting here looking at a shoebox on the table like it's a coiled snake. It's not going to bite me, obviously. I'm an old woman. I'm not senile. But what's inside it, well, it's already done its damage. My husband, Earl, passed away in 1994. It'll be 30 years this coming November. I loved that man. I really did. But back then, you didn't ask a man 1,000 questions about how he felt. You just lived. You shared a bed. You raised the kids, and you didn't poke at things. That was just how it was. He left me with a lot of things. A workbench covered in sawdust, a 78 Ford truck that my grandson still drives, and 3 children who call me every Sunday. I thought that was the whole story. But 2 weeks ago, my youngest, Dottie, was cleaning out that crawl space under the basement stairs. We haven't touched that spot since Earl put some boxes in there in 1989. She came up the stairs holding this shoebox. It was tied shut with that brown kitchen twine, the exact same kind Earl used to tie up his tomato plants in the garden. Inside, there were 41 letters, all in Earl's handwriting. They were addressed to me, but they didn't have postmarks. He never mailed them. Some of them go all the way back to 1959. I've spent 30 years missing a man I realize now I didn't actually know, not the real him. You have to understand Earl. He worked at the Kessler plant on Route 9. He made brake parts. He never talked about it. He'd just come home smelling like hot metal and that heavy motor oil. It got into the creases of his knuckles. You could never scrub it all out. I'd smell him the second he stepped onto the porch. We got married in 1953. I made my own dress on a Singer sewing machine. It cost $14. The reception was at the Masonic Hall, and someone spilled red punch on the floor. The ladies at the church were still gossiping about that stain 3 years later. We moved into this house in 61. I'm sitting in the same spot right now. There's a yellow burn mark on the floor by the stove from a grease fire back in 74. I always told Earl we'd fix it. We never did. The first letter I opened, it was dated March 14th, 1959. Dottie wanted to stay and read them with me, but I sent her home. I waited until 11 at night. I just had the little light over the stove on. I don't like the dark much these days. I untied that twine and picked up the first envelope. It had a 3-cent stamp on it. He'd actually gone to the trouble of stamping it, but he never walked it to the mailbox. He wrote in blue ballpoint pen. His letters always leaned to the left. Dorothy, it said. That's my name, but he only ever called me Dot. Seeing Dorothy felt like a stranger was talking to me. He wrote, I've been trying to say this out loud for 6 years and I just can't. So I'm writing it down. I need to tell you about Margaret. I had to put the paper down. My hands were shaking. Margaret Foods. She lived 3 streets over on Birch, a yellow house. I remember when they moved away in the late 50s. They just packed up and left for Pittsburgh one weekend. I kept reading. They'd known each other since they were kids. They had a situation, he called it. It started before I ever met him, but it didn't end until the winter of 1953. We'd been married for 6 months by then. He wrote, I cannot stand the way you look at me when I've let you down, Dorothy. I'd rather take a beating than see that look. I sat at this table, this exact table, and read that line over and over until my tea was stone cold. Before I continue, I want to thank this channel for giving me a voice to talk. If you're listening, please subscribe. It doesn't cost anything. And hit the like button so other people can hear this. There were 41 of them. 32 years of letters that I never got to read. They weren't all about Margaret. Her name went away after a few letters. The rest, they were about me. He wrote about 1967, when our son Gary was in the hospital. I sat in that waiting room for 11 hours. I thought I'd cry. I thought I was being strong for the family. But Earl wrote, I don't know if you're the strongest person I've ever seen, or if I broke something inside you and I'll never forgive myself. He wrote about our daughter's wedding in '78. He said he watched me from across the room and felt ashamed because he'd never told me how beautiful I was. He even wrote about a random Tuesday in 1983. He watched me standing at the sink in my housecoat, looking out at the yard. He said he watched me for 4 minutes and realized I had a whole world inside my head that he'd never once asked about. I put my head down on this linoleum and I cried. I cried harder than I did at his funeral because he was right. I did have a whole life inside my head. And I never told him. We spent 40 years in this house, sitting 6 feet apart, both of us carrying boxes of things we were too scared to say out loud. The last letter was dated 1993, a year before he died. He wrote, Dot, I'm not well. The doctor used a word I'm not going to write down. I haven't been a perfect husband, but I want you to know that for 40 years, I was just glad you were in the house. The house feels right when you're in it. I should have told you that. I'm telling you now, he never put it in the mailbox. I've spent 2 weeks lying in our bed wondering why. Was he scared? Did he think it would make him look weak? Or did he just think he had more time? That's the trap. You always think there's more time. There is never more time. My daughter Dottie asked me if I'm mad at him. I'm not. I wish I was. Anger is easier. I'm just sad. I'm sad that I found out he loved me that much only after he was gone for 30 years. I wrote him back 2 weeks ago. I sat right here at midnight and wrote it on the back of an old envelope. I told him about that Tuesday at the sink. I told him I was looking at a bird and thinking about my mother. I told him I missed him. I folded it up and put it in the shoebox with his letters. Where else am I going to send it? He's not at the Kessler plant anymore. If you're young and you're listening to this, if the person you love is in the next room right now, don't wait. Go knock on the door. Don't do it tomorrow. Do it right now. Say the thing you're scared to say. Don't worry about the perfect words. Earl was a good writer and he picked perfect words, but they all came 30 years too late. I still miss him every single day. I just hope I get to see him again someday so I can tell him myself.